Hi, Pat the podcast editor here. Do you ever get the feeling that it's all a bit too much? Well, today Dan and Lloyd are talking the stresses and strains of the workplace, the adverse effects that they can have, and most importantly, what you can do to help control them.
What do you class as stress?
Well, I think, as a definition, I would call stress as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances.
Did you just come up with that?
Yeah.
Now, Dan and Lloyd are no strangers to a bit of stress. And while there's no black and white solution to just magically make it go away, there are measures you can take to make it a bit more manageable.
But everyone will have stressful situations, so I guess just embrace them and know, I'm going to learn from this, and next time, even if this goes tits up, I'm going to learn and improve for next time.
So what are the actions you can take starting today to help bring down those stress levels? Stay tuned and find out. Right, let's get stuck in. Deep breaths, everyone. This is episode 66 of the Business Anchors podcast.
We're just a couple of business anchors. Welcome to the Business Anchors podcast. This jingle is slightly too long. This jingle is slightly too long.
How do you deal with stress at work, Dan?
Well, I'd actually like to take the opportunity to turn this on to you, Lloyd, because recently I think you've dealt with stress really well, which is why I came up with this podcast topic.
Oh, nice.
But no, I think observing you, I tend to observe you a lot.
Weird.
And I think you observe me when we're in our day-to-day. And I think recently we've had some stressful situations and I've just watched how you've dealt with it. And I thought, you've obviously got some kind of process. I don't even know if you've thought about the process, but you're doing certain things that make you look like you're good at dealing with stress. And I thought the listeners may want to understand that.
Very, very important that you said it makes it look like I'm good at dealing with stress.
Yeah.
So I can go through lots of techniques of how, to the outside world, I can look like I'm dealing with things very well. Thank you firstly, because I feel like that was a very positive start to the podcast towards me.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But that's
Some
how, I mean...
brotherly love on a Thursday morning, if you're a big fan and listening as soon as it comes out.
That's why, that's how we come up with these podcast topics. We look at what's going on in real life that people can learn from. So diving straight into it, I want to know, what causes stress for you? And actually, what do you class as stress?
Well, I think, as a definition, I would call stress as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances.
Did you just come up with that?
Yeah. No, that's an official definition that I've looked
Really?
at. But yeah, I know. Surprised it sounded so natural. But I actually have thought about stress a lot because I think about everything and my brain never stops. But also, I was trained in my early 20s by the most stressful job I think that could ever exist in the world ever.
Yeah.
So I, in my early 20s, worked at a language school. I think I was literally 20 at the time, maybe 21, and suddenly was thrown into this thing of, right, you have to live at this school.
Yeah.
There are 300 children. Make sure they're safe. Training? No training. Just make sure they're all safe. And also you have to arrange them to go to London twice a week with a few adults, a handful of adults, and try and make sure they don't all die.
That sounds pretty stressful.
Yeah, and do that for 8 weeks. So yeah, I was thrown into a situation that I wasn't qualified for, wasn't trained for, and had children's safety at the core of what I was responsible
sounds horrible.
for. So I was thrown in at the deep end when it comes to stress at work. And that if I'm honest, that was a horrible experience. But I think it kind of sped up my my learning of how to deal with stress. But for me, stress, I've tried to analyze this, and stress occurs for me when things that are seemingly outside of my control are taking my plans or my goals off course, basically.
That's a really good way of looking at it.
That's what I've noticed is when I feel stressed. So, because I think if you feel in control, even if things are going off course from what you want to happen and you're in control, I think the stress isn't there because you think, well, I'll just change what I'm doing and that'll be fine. I think it's when things feel out of your control, and that might be in a workplace, I don't have enough time to make this come back on course. I'm capable, but I don't have enough time. Or it might be, I've been given this authority or this responsibility, but either I don't know how to deal with it, or even though I'm responsible, I haven't been given the tools to deal with it.
Do you think you're good at dealing with stress?
I would say yes, actually. Now I do. Still definitely not perfect and need to improve, but there's definitely things that I've developed in myself to be better at it. But yeah, definitely can still improve, because to be completely honest, so I'm not going to go into details of this, but had fairly stressful situation at work over the last couple of weeks. And I have still felt stressed. So I suppose if you're perfect at dealing with stress, I would just do whatever I do and go, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
And I haven't been, but I know I've been much better than I would have been.
I do. Do you think, like, I'm thinking stress is generally known as like a negative thing. God, I don't want to get stressed. But I think sometimes stress can be good to make you progress what you're doing and improve what you're doing and better yourself.
I 100% agree. So stress can be a good thing. And I suppose that's like all of our human behavior. So, pain is a good thing because it makes you take your hand out the fire. Do you know what I mean? So stress, I think, can be a really positive thing at a low level because it wakes you up. And so I said I feel stressed when things are seemingly outside of my control. The word seemingly...
I noticed that word.
was because actually sometimes you feel like things are out of your control, but if you focus on it, you're like, oh, I can deal with this. So, I think stress can be good to give you that wake-up call of, oh, shit, I need to do something here. Like, this is in my control. I can change it, and then I won't feel stressed. I think too much stress is never good. You just can't deal with it. And I think that the two sides of, if things are in your control, I think you can stop stress by taking action. Don't procrastinate. Focus on this and make sure you deal with it. And I think the challenge is if you realise that actually it is outside of your control.
It's like, it reminds me of like at uni when you've got a deadline looming, where it's like you need to get this project in. It gets more stressful the closer to the deadline, but you are in control because you just got to actually do the work. And then you're all right.
Yeah.
It still feels stressful because you leave it so, or like traditionally students leave it so late, and then not me, obviously.
I definitely did that. So you're creating your own stress. So you might feel, if you're giving your stress a score, or I'm 32 out of 100 for this deadline I've got for this uni thing. And then you don't do any work for a week and you go, oh, I'm 74 stressed.
Are you describing your university life?
And then it gets to less than 24 hours and you haven't even started it and you go, I'm 98 and my heart's beating so fast and I'm panicking so much, I'm going to start. You definitely, I think, by procrastinating or not dealing with it, your stress can be increased.
What do you think the signs are that, I know it sounds like a stupid question, but what are the signs that you're stressed? Like, how do you know when you're stressed?
I can tell you my experience.
Yeah, go
on. I lay in bed at night thinking about things that I don't want to. So if I'm laying in bed thinking about budgets or how the team are going to spend their time in my bed, that's weird. So I noticed that shows it's a stress because I'm not... Normally, I can control my thoughts and go, right, I'm at work. I'm going to think about this stuff now. Right, I'm with my family. I'm going to think about my family. I think if things are creeping into your mind when they shouldn't be, that's a sign. Also, I feel my chest getting tight and my heart rate increasing.
Oh, wow.
When I think about things.
It's an actual physical response to your stress.
And I'd say the final thing that I have felt is my not being able to, feeling like there's so much I need to think about that my brain can't actually focus on something because I'm just so all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel.
Oh, well, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
I'm sure listeners can relate, though. Everyone gets stressed. Like, I never met anyone that doesn't get stressed.
How do you feel when you get stressed? Do you, because you seem surprised about my physical...
I go kind of foggy-headed and tunnel-visioned and not just rubbish, basically.
Oh, tunnel vision is a big thing for you, isn't it? Yeah.
I go even more tunnel vision. So if for example, there's this stressful thing happening in this one channel at work, I'll go tunnel vision on trying to solve that and just spend ages trying to do that. Forget everything else in life, like fiance, don't give her attention, hates me. Other things in life, like, no, nothing, I need to fix this thing. When really what you're good at is taking an initial action to kind of park that and solve, set out the actions to solve that, then do everything else. But I kind of struggle to focus on other things.
Yeah, I suppose actually your tunnel vision thing is a positive thing at first because you're like let's focus on dealing with this. But you can then probably get stressed about other things because you're putting off.
But I think
everything.
by observing you and learning from you, I'm getting better at that, and also feedback from you saying stop doing that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing that rubbish thing again. So, but I want to know. So let's actually start to get into some practical. I'm actually genuinely interested in understanding how you deal with stress. Have you thought about? Is there a way you can break it down, or like a process you go through, or if this stressful thing happens, do you like have steps you go through?
Yeah, I definitely do. So I have.
Tell me.
I have things that prevent me getting as stressed, and I also have things that when I feel out of control and I am feeling stressed, I have ways I can stop feeling the symptoms.
I'm really interested to hear this.
So
go on.
Which ones would you like
Should
to
we
hear
start
first?
with preventative stuff?
Okay,
Because that's
preventative
like
stuff.
before you're
So,
stressed. This is chilled vibes.
One thing I definitely do a lot, and I have been doing this week, reflecting on similar times I've been stressed in the past, and kind of reflecting on the fact it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the now and you're stressed about something, it feels like the biggest thing in the world. You know, like when you break up with a partner, if you ever have. I've never had any. But obviously at that moment, it feels like your world has ended. Like that's the worst. That, you know, if someone breaks up with you and you didn't want it to end. But then when you look back on 10 years ago when someone broke up with you, you go,
Stupid.
well, I was upset. Actually, that person was an absolute
Ball bag.
yeah. But yeah, so in a work context, so there's been times I've been stressed and I can look back and I think this sounds weird and morbid and I don't know, like I think too much, but realizing that very little actually matters.
Yeah.
So in the big picture thing of your whole life and the world and the people you love, there's not much that actually matters. Like if I said now to you, fuck off, I'm not doing the podcast. I don't think I ever said that on the podcast. Maybe bleep that, Pat. If I said, go away, I'm not doing the podcast, I can't be asked.
Yeah.
Like right now, it would seem like this big thing of like, why is Lloyd being such a weird person? But in 6 months, we just began, do you remember that weird day where you just told us all to go away, but in a more harsh way?
Yeah.
So yeah, very strange example. But the things that that really matter are you being happy and healthy and your family being happy and
So
healthy.
just remember, next time you get stressed, remember that probably is insignificant in the wider
Exactly. I think
scheme of
looking
things.
back and going, oh yeah, I've done this before. And now in reflection, that didn't even matter. I shouldn't have been stressing out about that. So that's very good at preventing you feeling that way. Also, perspective, so reflecting on how fortunate you are in general. Like, I'm happy and I'm healthy are my big things I
food and
focus
water.
on. Yeah, exactly. Too much
shelter.
food. Too much food. So that's good. But the kind of active things dealing with the symptoms, I suppose, that I do. So because that's quite fluffy and it's about it definitely helps. So do it if you're listening and you're stressed. But that's quite reflect on this and feel happy. It sounds
It's a bit wishy-washy.
fluffy. Whereas so I do a thing where I'm laying in bed when I'm stressed and I'm thinking about you all here at work.
Yeah.
And planning
What,
things.
and the business anchors listening?
And so my heart's racing. I'm thinking about, how is Pat's time going to be allocated next week? He's got too much work to do. How are we going to deal with this?
Yeah.
Pat doesn't want me thinking about him when I'm in bed.
I don't know why. That's slightly weird.
So I do two things. So please don't think I'm weird, listeners. One is something to help me get to sleep and stop thinking about weird shit.
Drink loads?
No.
Okay.
I tried that. And it's a technique I read in a book, and I think it's from the military. And it's you basically, it's a way apparently, like if you're in a trench, if you're basically in a war and someone's like, right, you get some rest, but there's still like bullets flying over your head. You're in this crazy environment and you need a way to quickly get some rest. Otherwise, you're just not going to sleep and then you're going to be screwed. So go through a process where I start from the center of my body and relax everything and gradually relax everything going to my fingertips and my toes and like all the muscles in your face, and you focus on relaxing everything.
I guess also thinking about that makes you stop thinking about anything else because you're like, I'm relaxing my shoulder blades now.
Exactly. And listeners probably think I'm absolutely mental that I do this.
No, I kind of get it.
But for me, I can fall asleep in about 3 minutes if I do that, and I know it works. So if your brain's racing, stressing you out, thinking about other stuff,
try that.
you can do that.
Nice.
Another thing that I do weirdly is it started that I meditated when I got into meditation when I was
used to have
stressed
that app,
at some
didn't
point. But now I've developed a technique which this sounds so crazy. So you close your eyes and you're thinking, what's Pat going to do on Tuesday? Or whatever. Or, all that budget's not going to stretch far enough for that client to be happy.
Yeah.
And so I just try and think of absolutely nothing. And if you've meditated before, you probably get this, but maybe not if you haven't. Try and clear your brain from any thoughts at all. And then if a thought enters your brain, suddenly it goes, Pat's got too much work.
Yeah.
Then in my head I just go, no, thank you. And as soon as
But you say no thank you
any
to the
type of
thought.
thought, like in my brain, I just say no, thank you, and then you clear your brain again, and you keep doing it. It sounds mental, but it works. And eventually, you say no enough, and you clear your brain from any thoughts, and then you're just relaxed, and you fall asleep. And, yeah,
I kind of want to try it.
Sounds weird, doesn't it?
Thing is, though, that sounds like
No, thank you.
you know when people say don't think of a pink elephant.
And you
And
can't.
you think of a pink elephant.
Yeah.
But if you're saying, it must work. You've said it works.
That's
but
the thing. But
no, thank you.
But previously, I've been laying in bed thinking, don't think about that client budget that you're concerned
okay.
about.
Yeah.
And then obviously your brain's going, what, that client budget? You don't want to think about
That you're
that.
concerned about.
But if you just go, no, thank you, and clear it, it takes some practice.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's something I deal with, the symptom of when your brain's race, because it doesn't help if you're thinking about things that you don't want to be.
Yeah.
It just gets you more and more stressed.
I might just
and it
use that
doesn't make
technique
sense.
if when you're speaking to me and I don't want to speak to you.
No, thank you.
Cool. These are some really practical things. I'm loving this.
How do you deal? Because I feel like that's very strange. But do you deal with stress in a more normal way?
I've got a few things, but again, I'm not the way I do deal with stress is a number of things. So the first thing, similar to you, I put things into perspective and try and show some gratitude and think about, does this really matter in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah.
Because previously I didn't do that, and I'd think it was, the world's going to end and all that kind of thing. So same first step.
That perspective thing of understanding that doesn't really matter, and I shouldn't be feeling this negative about that.
Yeah. Second step is it's more of a thing you do after you've been stressed. Through experience, when you experience more stressful situations, you start to get better at dealing with them. And you think, this happened once before when an actor didn't turn up to a shoot, or, this sales deal didn't come through and I thought it was going to come through. So knowing that happens and then being able to think, what did I do last time and how would I improve that? That like reflection of...
That's interesting, actually. So actually exposing yourself to stressful situations in a controlled way then makes you better prepared for the next one.
Yeah.
I suppose, like I said, of my thrown in the deep end when I was 20.
Yeah, you're like,
then
I can
other
deal with
stresses
anything.
seem like all right. I was like, that kid was in an ambulance and he was all right.
Yeah. And I guess the only action step for that is just be in more stressful situations, which sounds stupid.
Great tip. I'm sure the listeners are looking forward to
but
that.
everyone will have stressful situations. So I guess just embrace them and know I'm going to learn from this. And next time, even if this goes tits up, I'm going to learn and improve for next time.
I suppose that's important because I have this whole perspective of it doesn't matter. The reality is, like, it doesn't matter as in you're not going to die.
Yeah.
But you do have, at work, you do have goals
There's
and
gonna be
you want to
consequences.
progress. Or there's going to be consequences. So I suppose it's the balance of realizing, don't focus on it so much you're going to kill yourself.
Yeah.
But the balance of, well, you still want to achieve that goal. So
still try and, yeah.
Interesting.
And the third thing, this is huge for me, is support. So in terms of support from you, mainly you, I'd say, in a work environment, whenever I feel stressed, we go for a walk and we talk about it, and I feel way better after because you support me and say, well, let's try this, and then that works usually. So that having someone, and even if you're listening to this and maybe you're on your own, you're like a sole trader or you haven't got that much support around you, try and find someone, even if it's someone else in the industry or someone else you trust or another business owner that you can speak to and have those conversations. Because I find we're part of kind of Agencynomics, which is a community run by Spencer and Pete, who wrote a book called Agencynomics. And I always find I'm going to an event in London tomorrow actually with a load of other agency owners, and we've gone to various ones in the past. And when I have conversations with those agency owners and we discuss like, oh, what's gone mental in your business before? Oh, this one time, you know, everyone wanted to quit because of this thing happened. And you can have those conversations that then help you understand how other people have dealt with it, so that when it happens to you, you're like, oh, those guys who are, you know, doing really well dealt with it this way, and you can learn from other people's experiences.
I think I need to learn. Like, I'm very fortunate to have your support, like you said, but actually, I think it's quite challenging to, rather than try and just deal with things yourself, to actually speak about it.
Yeah.
And I even need to do that more. So I still just try and deal with a lot of things in my own head.
Yeah.
Whereas, certainly I need to be more proactive and be like, I'm going to talk about this.
I think on the note of being proactive, there was a really interesting podcast I listened to, Steve Bartlett's podcast, The Diary CEO, mentioned it various times. One of the episodes, he talked about stress and how people deal with stressful situations and emergencies.
Yeah.
And he gave this analogy of a fire. And I thought it's a really interesting perspective of looking at how people deal with stress. So imagine we're here now and this table set's on fire.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Well, no, wait, don't deal with it yet. I'm going to tell you the different.
It's on fire.
So there's a fire there, right? So there's a few different ways people deal with that. One, some people just point at the fire and say, "The table's on fire. The table's on fire.
Right.
The table's on fire."
Yeah.
Like pointing at the problem and just like pointing it out. Other people will just like be still and not know what to do and just panic and like be shocked and like just stand there and burn basically.
So they're thinking the table's on fire, but they're just frozen.
Like panicking in their mind.
Yeah, okay.
Other people will just run away. Like there's a fire there.
Classic like flight response.
Yeah, fight or flight.
I'm surviving. See you later.
And then some people will in their mind think, right, there's a fire there. How do we solve this problem? Look around for a fire extinguisher, put the fire out.
Right.
That's someone who's proactively dealing with a problem or a stressful situation rather than running away or like the biggest and most common one that people do is they point at the fire and say, there's a fire.
Interesting, yeah.
Guys, there's a fire. There's a fire. It's like,
we can all smell it and feel the heat.
Yeah. But really what you, and Steve Bartlett on his podcast spoke about the people in terms of establishing leaders within your business who can really bring the business forward. You need to be finding the people who are going and getting the fire extinguisher to put out the fire. They're the leaders within your business that you want to
really
build
interesting up. In a business context, because there's lots of problems that you have to overcome. So it's basically
a fire is like an
some
extreme
people
example.
that go, there's a problem. That's shit. Look at that. There's a problem.
Yeah.
There's a problem. And like saying, other people that are just thinking, there's a problem over there.
Yeah, there's a problem. Other people, there's a problem. I'm running away from that.
Yeah. See you later.
I don't want to deal with that.
And then like saying those that are quietly thinking,
How
I know
can we
there's that
overcome
problem.
this
What can
problem?
we... Yeah, that's really interesting. And I guess it's not as black and white. We've probably all got levels of those responses.
Yeah.
So some of us might be partially, I'm going to try and solve that, and partially frozen. Like, I'm not
I've
sure.
definitely run away from problems before.
Yeah.
I've definitely pointed at a problem and said, there's a problem. I've done all of them. But I guess if you understand that analogy and next time there is a problem, try and be the person who proactively solves it rather than points at it or runs away. Or just stands by it and carries on.
Yeah, I think being aware of that is really good because you can try and identify if you're going, there's a problem, and not doing anything.
I think that is the most common one when you analyse yourself. You know, I do it a lot. There's a problem.
Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So that's my kind of how I deal with stress and my little story for you.
Nice. Are there any other times? Because I spoke a lot about my experience previously about my most stressed experience when I was younger. Do you have any real intense stress moments? Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly the one.
Okay.
Which I've spoken about before, but it was when I worked at Enterprise before this, when I got promoted twice within 8 months of being there and was managing a team of 8 and 250 cars. And I was way out of my depth. Did not have I was promoted way too quickly. And I basically had to come into work. And when I was assistant manager, and when my manager went away, I didn't have his support. So I was just responsible for this 8 staff, never managed anyone in my life, for these people coming into the branch saying, where's my car? I've booked it this morning. And I was like, shit, I haven't got a car and sourced one from another branch to get to you. So haven't got a car for you, sorry. And them hating and screaming at me.
It's that thing I said about feeling out of control, isn't it?
Yeah.
That completely
totally the control thing. Oh man, and that was the most horrible. And like I said before, I ended up quitting and moving home and having a bit of a breakdown. But
interesting as business owners or employers as well, thinking how can we make sure we don't put our team into a situation where they feel like they've got responsibility and they don't have the ability to do the job well enough, because we both know how horrible that has. Obviously, we've got fairly extreme examples, but you don't want anyone even getting near to that feeling, do you?
No.
So I think that's definitely something to consider. You're not going to get the best out of your business if you're doing that to people and they're going to quit.
I guess we need to just look out for the signs of stress, like the things that we've said, and try and be supportive, and but we're, like we say, we're not perfect, and we're going to continue to try and apply this stuff we've said today.
Definitely, this is our good therapy session.
If anyone's listening, bonus.
So I'd say, in summary, on stress, if you're happy and healthy, and your family are happy and healthy, try and think that nothing else really matters. So that's all right. If they're not, or you're not happy and healthy, then stress about that, probably. Yeah. That's probably a good idea. Not stressing about hitting your Q4 profit target for some business or... perspective. And please, any business anchors that try the no thank you method, let me know.
Do you know what I love as a final point? I love the business anchors that email me, that message on and comment on our stuff, these little random things that we talk about. Like, remember that one time where at the end of an episode you were like, whoever messages me this thing, I'm going to send them a pizza.
Yes.
Yeah, got random messages about that.
Nice.
And little things. So yeah, please do, and also share the podcast with your friends if you think they will find this interesting.
Just message me saying no thank you.
And no, the one final thing, sorry, I keep saying one final thing. Sometimes, because we produce so many episodes, I forget the references. So people are saying stuff to me and I'm like, I can't remember what that was about.
The guy that won the pizza said to me, can I have a pizza? And I was like, what? No. And then he was saying, remember? Am I the first one? And I was like, what are you talking about? So yeah, I can relate to that. We record too many podcasts, but we'll try. If you say no thank you to me, I'll try not to be rude back. I'll try and remember.
And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.